Hi everyone, I am joined again by Rob Gardner. Welcome, Rob.
Hey Tara.
I don't know about you, but keep seeing articles that are all sort of what to look out for in 2022, big trends to be aware of, videos or movies that are coming out that you might want to watch. I thought it might be quite fun to have a think about big money trends for 2022 in that sort of overall general theme. And no better person to ask than you, Rob. You kind of cover all aspects of the world of money and finance. So what is your big trend for 2022 that people should be looking out for in the world of money?
Well, what a great question. I love the way you thought about it. For me, 2021 is probably the seminal year that people really got climate change. And I suppose three reasons. You know, another year of COVID has got us just thinking about our impact as humans on the planet. And, you know, we're all focused on COVID, but kind of behind that, our awareness of the relationship between us as humans and the planet has grown, and climate change, and be that the fires in Turkey and Greece over the summer, gets closer to our everyday lives. The second was the IPCC report that came out over the summer, and I'm guessing most people would never even read a big academic paper, but it was all over the news. And again, it was basically saying climate change is real and humans are causing it. It was a very detailed academic paper with lots of evidence, but that was it. And 99% of scientists around the world all agree on, you know, climate change is happening and it's caused by humans. And then the third thing was COP26, which was the conference of parties where politicians gathered in Glasgow, but crucially, it wasn't just politicians. This year was the first COP where the finance industry was there, and Mark Carney talked about how the GFANZ, the Global Financial Alliance of Net Zero Financial Institutions, was $150 trillion committed to this. So what's the big trend? The big trend is, if you think about the last decade, has been all about data, technology, digitization. So think Apple, think social media, so Facebook, think Amazon, maybe even Tesla. The next decade will all be about decarbonization. And it's in every single industry. The airline industry, what are they doing about e-fuels and how are they thinking about the transition to electric planes? Steel manufacturers, how are they going to create net zero steel? The construction industry, how do we create net zero cement? And then every other company, and there's going to be real focus on the financial services industry and saying, what are the banks doing? What are insurance companies doing? What are asset managers doing? And what are wealth managers doing to play their part? So this is it. This is the big trend for the next decade. And I think it's an exciting investment opportunity. I think, to be a little bit on the bearish side, if we don't do it, we're kind of all in trouble. So we kind of just need to get on and make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely amazing to see how sort of mainstream a lot of this conversation about climate action and climate change has become. And actually, that is headline news. And you would never have thought that 5 years ago. I mean, we've been talking about the sort of environmental side of investing for a while, but I wouldn't have thought that would be such a big mainstream news topic. But can we just dive into a little bit sort of how that is connected to individuals and their money? I mean, what could anyone watching this video do, and how can they actually have an impact? Because I think it can be quite hard sitting here thinking as one person, yes, I can recycle, yes, I can reduce my meat consumption, but how big of an impact is that really having? And can people use their money to have a bigger impact?
Yeah, so I think there are sort of four levels of impact to talk about. So first and foremost, you talked about, as a consumer, what do I choose to eat and buy and consume? And so, look, you know, I probably eat less and less red meat every year. I'm not going to give up red meat. I like it, but increasingly becoming a more mindful consumer of everything from clothes to food to my travel choices. The second thing is, as a citizen, how do I vote? How do I hold my politicians to account? But the third thing is how I invest. And there have been two studies. So Nordea did a study that said that if we invest in a sustainable and responsible way over the next 40 years, that's 27 times more impactful than flying less, eating less red meat, and cycling to work. Again, a campaign called Make My Money Matters, worked with Aviva investors, and they came up with a very similar number, 21 times. The point is that where you invest your money, and if you're just saving £50 a month, £100 a month to your ISA or pension, you've got this massive force multiplier, because chances are you're investing with a big organization. So your £100 a month, it's a bit like that Mary Poppins, your £100 a month gets invested alongside billions of pounds, which gets invested in hundreds of billions of pounds. The UK pensions industry is over £2 trillion. The UK wealth industry is over £2 trillion. That then gets invested across trillions of pounds worth of companies. And if you get the fund managers who are investing your money on your behalf to engage with those companies, they can hold those companies to account. They can hold Shell to account and saying, why aren't you signing up to net zero? Sign up to net zero. Why aren't you increasing your carbon commitments? What are you doing about the Cambo oil field? But it's not just about oil and gas. What about the airline industry? What about the car industry? What about Volkswagen? How are you going from internal combustion engine to electric vehicle? And that's the really powerful thing, that actually we don't think that the money that we're saving for our financial prosperity and our financial well-being, which is what we normally talk about when we get together, is actually has this massive Archimedean lever in terms of really changing the impact on people and planet.
Yeah, definitely. The way I like to think about it is, if you're putting money into a pension pot that you're not able to access until you're 55, and you might be 20 when you start, you have to be investing in a way that ensures the world is a place that you actually can and want to live in at that point when you're allowed to access the money. It just seems counterintuitive to not do it, to not look at it that way. And you've talked about pensions as a place where people can do it, and actually the Make My Money Matter campaign, I think one of the premises of it was to say to people, let's get the weight of demand from the bottom up, the actual savers, the people whose money it actually is, to make this change happen, because the industry wasn't going to do it on its own. You could get regulator and policy makers to force people's hands, but they tend to try not to do that unless they absolutely have to. And let's get people engaged with this and saying what they want. And so what advice would you give people if they wanted to have their voice heard on these matters?
Well, hopefully everyone listening in is, if you're employed, chances are you're in your company pension. If you're self-employed, hopefully you've been convinced to set up your own pension. And so what I would do is I would write an email to your pension provider, or write an email to your HR, the human resources at your place of work, and who is your pension invested with? It will probably be invested with an insurance company or an asset manager, and then try and understand what are their commitments to responsible investment. How are they thinking about these issues? How are they investing your money? And really, start up at 10. Just, it's that awareness. Is how's your money being invested, and is that in line with how you want your money invested? And if it's not, then the next step is that you can speak to your colleagues and see how they feel about it, and you can engage your human resources department, you can engage your provider, and hopefully change the way they invest.
That does sound a lot more straightforward than becoming a vegan, I have to say. Just send a letter, ask a question, and maybe make a change if there is a sustainable option available to you. I mean, there really should be. So yeah, that's definitely more straightforward. Outside of the world of pensions, though, other ways people can invest their money to be good to people and planet.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a sort of whole load of things that you can do, and I suppose you'll always talk about having your money in a bank and how it's that's your emergency savings. More and more banks are making net zero commitments. Again, RBS, NatWest have made some quite big commitments around net zero. So, check out your bank. Who are you banking with? What commitments are they making around all of these? We've talked about ISAs and pensions. I suppose if you want to go further than that, and you kind of want to do what's called impact investing, which is how do you drive change, there are some sort of tax investment vehicles called EIS and SEIS, which are kind of tax schemes to get you to invest in more startups. And again, there's some amazing startup businesses that are really trying to drive change, either come up with innovative technologies to sequester carbon, or are looking at ways to protect nature. It turns out that actually nature is really good at restoring the planet to the way it should be. So if we can find ways to invest in rainforests or peatlands or mangrove, or restore the amount of elephants that live in the world, or increase the population of whales, then actually this is good for our ecological prosperity as well as our financial prosperity.
The charity Friends of the Earth ran a campaign called Own It, which I was involved in, which was actually around using some of these aspects, which are things that people are genuinely interested in, to get people engaged with the idea of investing. Because if you care about what the companies are actually doing at the other end, and you think that's doing good as well as being a good investment opportunity, it's an added motivator to start engaging in the world of investing and finance. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, one of the things that you can do is not just speak to your employer about your pension, but speak to your employer about what are they doing. And you work at a company that has just figured out its total CO2 since when the company was founded, and then gone and offset it by investing in a whole load of natural capital solutions around the world, creating genuine additionality. So the place you work is also a place that can make a difference. So, again, if you're an employee, don't just think about where your pension's invested, but just think about what commitments is the company you work for making to being a responsible business.
Yeah, there's definitely a number of aspects. That's one of them. The way I think about it is where you earn your money, which is the employer, where you keep your money as cash, where you spend it, and then where you invest it. And those are the 4 areas that I like to think about where we can have impact. And I think everybody focuses on the spending, which actually can sometimes be the hardest one to make real change. And the other areas are the last thing I just want to touch on. I suppose we've covered a number of different ways that you can do this, but also simple places like robo advisors, simple investment options. They will have sustainable options available. They can sometimes be more expensive, so it's definitely worth having a look at that. But really simple ways of accessing sustainable investment opportunities exist out there. So if anyone's interested, then definitely check those out.
And increasingly, there's better tools to explain not just how your money is performing, but also how it's performing on these metrics. So yeah, you're right. It's not only can you see how your money grows over time, but what impact, how many plastic bottles has it stopped, how many trees has it planted in equivalent CO2 saved, or how many more women are there on the boards of the companies that they invest in. So it's really interesting to see how those metrics come through over time.
Well, I heard loud and clear that is Rob Gardner's big trend for 2022. I'm looking forward to catching up with you this time next year, and we can see how it's all played out and where the world's gone in terms of sustainable investing and impact. Thanks, Tara. Well, look, wishing you and all your listeners a happy and healthy and prosperous New Year, and Merry Christmas to all of you.